So I've been part of the art community online now for a while. No, not that art community. That's right, the video game. And I don't know what it is about the game, but it seems to draw in a few creationists as well as those confused as to the topic. Perhaps working under the ancient premise that video games are a children's thing and that these people clearly like dinosaurs, they assume that art players are all kids who like dinosaurs and therefore are ripe for indoctrination. Thus, like a group of choir boys or a woman with exposed hair attract their respective flavour of religious zealotry, so too does this game. And I can't really fault them for trying to make the whole God thing more interesting with extinct dinosaurs. After all, what would you rather hear your preacher talk about? The ways in which masturbation are a sin against God?
Today we're doing a little bit of Q&A, and this question has come up so often. What's wrong with masturbation?
Or indeed, the legendary creatures which once roamed this planet. There's just no competing really. And yet, whilst I've seen some of the same dribble run by, I was surprised to find something new which, if the young of creationists haven't found out about yet and kicked up a major stink, then they were sure to do so soon. So I was scrolling through my Facebook feed when I was greeted by the following title. Video! Small dinosaur corpse found in India with flesh still on its bones. And you can tell its importance since the entire title is written in capitals. As it turns out, this is in fact the second coming for the Jaspur corpse, first having been found around mid-November. Yet whilst it was widely reported in India and on a few international blogs, it seems a report by none other than the British Daily Fail has reignited speculation. Though I will say at least that the Daily Fail placed Resembling in the title, which is far more honest than some. And yet inside we find all the same claims. Statements like, scientists have been left mystified and the scientists are baffled after having found a mysterious creature resembling a dinosaur with flesh still on its bones in Jaspur, as well as which has baffled scientists who are struggling to identify what it is, and so on. Yet while some papers are merely using verbal ploys to get readers invested and drive traffic, others are being outright deceptive, such as with the article I first read, which contains the sentence that, quote, scientists have unearthed what they believe to be the remains of a small dinosaur at a deserted substation in a small town in India, end quote. Meanwhile, no scientist has stated anything close, but more on the story as to how it was found later. But for now, for your wonder or perhaps amusement, I present the latest claim to a recently deceased dinosaur. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jaspur corpse. What should be glaringly obvious from the offset is that there is nothing about the corpse itself which suggests that it's a non-avian dinosaur. We see no characteristics such as scales, feathery quills, downy feathers, claw-like arms, etc. It seems that the sole basis for the claim that this is indeed a dinosaur has come from the degraded forelimbs and the pose the corpse is petrified in, leading many reporters to compare it to a member of the always popular Velociraptor family. Yet the reason the body looks so distorted is that the body has decayed, yet the outer flesh has remained, losing moisture and shrinking, which as a result pulls the hide taut over the body like a drum. This causes the body to attempt to retract as tension grows, crumpling parts of the body such as the spine, the neck and the legs. When you flatten the back and adjust the leg to account for this, we have a problem as now the better surviving front limb could easily touch the ground. This is a major issue for the paper speculating that this is some form of Velociraptor, a bipedal theropod which did not have oversized forelimbs. And that's without noting the pitifully shortened, rounded skull. What I also notice is that there are only 2 cavities in the skull, and a second one here which may simply exist due to the body having degraded so much. What's important is that it lacks the 4 to 6 cavities characteristic to all theropod dinosaurs, with seemingly no space behind the eye socket to allow for the inferior temporal fenestra, a cavity located behind the eye sockets in not only theropod dinosaurs, but crocodilians. The problem with using this to counter claims that this is a dinosaur, however, comes in the fact that it could simply be the result of the flesh not falling through. Yet I still maintain that there's very little room behind the eye socket for the inferior temporal fenestra. Moving on to the more conclusive analysis, however, I'd like to draw your attention to the pelvic region, namely this looping region of bone formed where the pubis and the ischium fuse. The gap itself is called the obturator foramen, and we as human beings also have this trait. But please take an educated guess as to which set of animals characteristically don't have said obturator foramen.
Dinosaur!
Yes, scary pig child, dinosaurs. Lizard-hip dinosaurs lacked any such fusing, whilst the fusing seen in some forms of bird-hip dinosaurs led to a long bone jutting backwards, something which is not seen in the photo. Yet neither clade has an obturator foramen like we see in the photo. Mammals, on the other hand, do, with some of the most distinct ones belonging to small mammals, including Felis catus, more commonly known as the domestic cat. And the story behind the corpse's discovery would support that hypothesis. It was of course found in Jaspur city in Uttarakhand, India. However, it was not found through excavation or due to natural weather eroding the soil to expose the corpse. No, instead it was found inside a storage facility which was part of a metro station that had been abandoned for between 10 and 35 years, depending on the source. And maybe it's just me, but I find the idea of a cat or similar animal managing to enter an abandoned building, becoming trapped and subsequently perishing to be a far more likely explanation than the idea that there is an undiscovered population of non-avian dinosaurs which evolved an entirely mammalian obturator foramen, living in the abandoned metro beneath the Indian city of Jaspur, somehow entirely self-sustained and undiscovered to within at least the past 35 years. Even the idea of this being some previously unknown mammal is far more probable than a surviving population of non-avian dinosaurs. Which brings me on to the part of the story which is being used as an excuse to sensationalize the entire story. Dr. Parag Madhukar Dakate, who is a conservator within the Indian Forest Service, stated that, quote, "Speculation regarding the truth will be done by DNA test, carbon dating, which will ascertain the truth in coming days." End quote. This was subsequently changed in the articles to become Dr. Parag Madhukar Dakate, quote, "said that the creature would remain an enigma until scientific analysis had been completed." End quote. And whilst it may not be completely dishonest, I can't help but ponder why they felt the need to rewrite his words to include enigma, which is a buzzword for woo. As for why a conservator found it hard to identify the corpse in question, I'd like to remind you of the mummified state it was found in. Out in the wild, the conditions for mummification are near non-existent. Due to both weathering and scavenging by other animals, carcasses are rarely left undisturbed, making coming across one such case an oddity in itself. I was merely lucky in how the flesh at the rear had split open, revealing the distinctly non-dinosaurian pelvis underneath. Now I get that speculation can be fun, but what these papers have to understand is that there are people out there who don't want to learn actual biology. They instead prefer various unsubstantiated myths of a god pulling life out of a cosmic hat and will utilize these speculations as evidence that science is wrong. And even though a surviving population of dinosaurs would in no way disprove either evolution nor challenge the age of the Earth extending into the billions of years, that is how it's used to attack not just science, but education as well. But let's pretend that this was indeed an individual which must have been part of a much larger population of non-avian dinosaurs that had survived. If that were the case, then they would become the second dinosaur lineage to have survived to this age. You see, we already have evidence of living dinosaurs, and it's so readily available that I even have body parts of one such creature in my freezer. I am of course on about avian dinosaurs, scientifically known as the class Aves, or as we colloquially know them, birds. If further analysis of the corpse were to find it to be a form of non-avian dinosaur that had through convergent evolution evolved the same sort of pelvis as seen in mammals, then it would merely become one more such example. And as seen through the facts that birds existing does not refute evolution or challenge the age of the Earth, the same could be said for the hypothetical dinosaur. And now that I've paid my ANRA tax in noting nested hierarchy, back to the papers. I will say this, Asian News International, who played a big part in breaking the story, was careful about what it stated in its report, and this criticism of how some papers are going a step too far was noted in India Today. So I'll give credit where credit is due in how not all papers have taken to letting out a stream of incoherent speculation mixed with semantic games. As for those who have taken the low ground when talking about the corpse in question, I think a large part of this reason can be seen in the fact that many of the papers are using the word Jurassic, even though the majority of the dinosaurs mentioned come from either the Triassic with Coelophysis and the late Cretaceous as seen with Velociraptor. You see, this came around at the time where the new Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom trailers had been released. Dinomania once again is on the public's mind, and hell, some of the papers even mention Jurassic Park and Jurassic World directly. Stories of hypothesized, still living non-avian dinosaurs are a great way for papers to cash in on the traffic surge caused by people searching for said movie trailers. Now, I've been working on this video for a while now, with it being caught up in the end of year holidays, and I only came to know of another attempt to actually investigate this case by a journalist, David Moscato from Earth Touch News. Whilst my first reaction to seeing the photos was to go, okay then, let's look at some resources on anatomy and investigate, they did the smart thing in contacting a load of specialists of paleontology. Suffice to say that they had much more to say about the corpse than I did, and unanimously agreed that this was not a surviving form of non-avian dinosaur, so please go check out the article, which will be linked down below. Though I must admit I may have some bias in how Layla Lynch, one of the paleontologists Moscato reached out to, noted the entirely mammalian hip structure. And even though Lynch, as the expert whose knowledge dwarfs mine, forwards that it's a species of mustelids, so of the same family as the weasel rather than a cat, I still feel I did pretty well in highlighting how anyone with the resources available to them today with the internet can investigate these claims for themselves, and I feel that is something worthwhile in of itself. But from the evidence available, there is no reason at all to suspect that this creature was anything more than a poor mammal that got trapped inside a storage room in India, and unless the science departments at Cuman University, where the remains were sent to, come forward with new evidence to the contrary, I think it's safe to lay this so-called mystery to rest. Thank you for watching. There are just a few names I wish to read out here at the end to thank in particular, but first of all I'd like to start with John Schoenrock, who I have sadly been mispronouncing their name for the past 2 months. Along with them, I'd like to thank Hannah Banghart, Trevor Matheson, Andrew Spreitzer, Matthew Kovac, Alexander Williams, and David Martinez. Your support has truly given this channel its ability to grow over the years, and I can't thank you enough.